guys, to A-Team Adventures. I'm Andrew Clark. Really excited to bring you out on the water with me today. Again, it's a little windy. Hopefully the audio isn't too bad for you. And we're going to get in here. There's a small little cove where I would expect pre-spawn spawning fish to be at. So we're gonna get in here, flip a few trees, see if we can find something. If not, we're gonna move right along to another spot and just keep trying different spots until we can figure something out together. All right, let's get to it. Alright guys, first fish of the day, little baby. Hopefully we can find some bigger ones in here. Let him go. See if we can upsize a little bit. We're gonna need to cull that one out. Didn't think they could get any smaller. They did. Go. That's a little more like it. Finding a better fish there. Get back in my pocket. There we go. I don't know if you can see that. Still flipping that creature bait. And just right up, we're in the current, where the current comes into the lake, the river. Look at that beautiful fat fish, fat belly. Beautiful fish. We'll put her back. Let her get back to work. But she's obviously feeding up. It's right in the mouth of the creek. You can kind of see me right behind me. That's, goes out to the lake right there. And this is just a river, a creek that comes in, feeding into the lake. And that fish was right up here. This is the deep side of the channel. And right up tight behind a bush, close to the current, but not having to fight the current too much. Just obviously feeding up, getting ready to spawn, and boy, what a treat to get to catch her. All right, let's see if we can put another one in the boat. All right, guys, we're picking up one more here. Go. Pick up another one. They are pretty. Oh, they are pretty. So if you see where the channel was on, this side of the creek, it swapped over, so the channel's on the other side now. Right there, there's a beaver hut and a whole bunch of stick-ups, and that's where it was. Just right into that. I've made a few pitches in there, casts and pitches, and it was right in there. I just thumped it as I was working it back out. Alright, we need a new bait. Tell you what, with how many Strike King baits I go through, I should probably buy shares in the stock in the company. I'd probably You know, if I stop buying the baits for a month, let the stock price drop, buy in, and then start buying baits again, my money would just about double probably. I'm being facetious, obviously, but at times I think, man, I should buy stock in that company. Looks like we're going to need to retie soon. Working down out of here. Say that. Oh. Okay guys, we caught a few on this beaver hut right here beside me, and when that happened I figured, well, let's go up this bank a little bit. So we went up maybe about 100 yards and we caught a few all the way up, and then we turned around and I was fishing the jackhammer chatterbait, and we caught a few coming up. And then I turned around and took a creature bait and worked my way back down, and I caught one more. And then we got to the beaver hut again, and we pulled 2 bass, not giants, like £1.5 pounds, but 2 bass off of it and a pickerel. And I do this to you every time I get on the phone, so I shut the camera off and I start catching fish. So I gotta just pretend sometime I'm on the phone, but leave the camera rolling, and we'll catch all kinds of fish together. But that's why it's not recorded. I'm sorry. We'll see if we can catch some more. Come on. Oh, and one thing I should mention, as we were fishing on that beaver hut, there was either a log or a flat, you know, worn out spot in the bank just outside of where it looks like the stick-ups were. As I was working that bait, I'd hit that and instantly I'd get a fish. As I'm just dragging along, I'd bump that and I'd get a fish. So it seemed like a little bit of a depression in either a rock or a log or something. It seemed like that was the spot on the spot. And sometimes it can be just a teeny little spot that just, there's fish there, but that spot, for some reason, is the key. Certainly that's the case on a bed fish, that there's a spot on the bed that's most important. But even in, you know, something like that, there can be the spot on the spot, and you want to pay attention. I actually remember the first time I heard that term was it was Roland Martin was fishing. Scott Martin and Roland Martin, they were fishing. What was? Boy, now I can't remember the lake, but he was fishing a mat on a frog, and Roland Martin, actually the father, had gotten advanced through the tournament, and he was you know pretty close to winning. I don't believe he won that tournament, but he was fishing a mat, and he would fish up the mat and down, you know, and make a loop. But there was a key spot on that mat for whatever reason. It was, I think, the size of a front deck on the boat, and that's where the best fish seemed to come. And he'd ease up around it and fish. He'd give it a little time to replenish, and then he'd come back to that spot, and he'd usually catch another one or two good fish on it, and he just kept working that area, and that's what he called it, the spot on the spot. And sometimes it varies from the size of a boat deck to, I mean, right down to a teeny little spot. But just something to pay attention to. If you're catching fish, just if you catch them in one spot, keep working that same spot, and then maybe ease out a little bit and see if there is sort of the spot on the spot and you hadn't found it yet. But just something to pay attention to. Okay, guys, we just picked off another one. We've got a tree right here, and just picked off one more on the creature bait. This particular tree so far doesn't feel to me like we're going to get a whole bunch off of it, but I am going to flip in there again, just to be sure. Pays to be thorough. Okay, I'm going to have to swap this one. Some days, like, you know, a day like today, it seems like that flipping bite seems to be pretty key. What I'll do is I'll just pull a whole bunch of these baits that I'm using that are working. I just toss them in my cup holder or somewhere it's very, for me, the cup holder works great, but somewhere where they're easy to get to. So I'm not constantly opening and closing my rod box, my locker there, my storage compartment. And it's just a little quicker. Started running. Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, I guess there we go. It pays to throw back in there. They didn't eat it like it felt like there were a whole bunch in there, but there were at least two. All right, guys, there we go. There's another one. it. Boy, I love catching them this way. This is quite satisfying. I had you know, earlier in the season, it seems like at some point in the season they come up into these creek channels and you seek out the current to feed up, and it's, you know, obviously a little bit before the spawn, and that seems key. But I had tried this a couple times earlier in the season, and they just weren't here yet. The water temperature in here is 56.4 right now, and I had come up in here when it was, you know, 40s, and it just was not happening. But boy, is it nice to you know, you can be ahead of those fish. And so you know, once you discover that, you go back out, and sure enough, you find fish in staging areas along the way. But it sure is nice to catch them in here, and they obviously they're looking for somewhere to pull up and stop. Just going down the bank, probably not all that useful. You might catch some, but you know, it seems like the majority of these fish, there's a limb. It seems like the majority of these fish are somewhere that's a little different going up. So if you've got a plain old bank and then a tree sticking out like we've got here, well, that's going to be the spot. And there are multiple trees, you know, coming up here, so I'm flipping most of them. And not all are created equal for some reason. It seems like, you know, one tree is better than another. But you got to keep trying things and find something that's just a little bit different going down the bank. That's the spot that these fish are going to stop at. And there's probably a reason. If you really could put all the factors together, this one probably has a little deeper water, or it's got a little more current, or, you know, there's something about this one that's different than the last one we were just at. But you know, from where I stand, it's a little hard to determine the difference. But that's why we flip a few of these and make our decision on you know, where these fish are at. We don't just stop at one tree and then pack up and go home. So, and then that fish, he was really in that tree. I had flipped right to the center of the tree, and I don't know if you could see, but I set the hook, but then just kind of leaned back, and I could feel him, you know, fighting around. Then he'd come my way, and I'd take up that slack, and then he would kind of try to go his way, and I just hold him, and then he would come my way, and I'd pull him some more. I didn't overdo it, but I kept pressure on him all the time, and whenever he came my way, I said, "Hey, good job," and just kept bringing him my way. But I didn't absolutely force him, or I probably would have broken off. So, just something to pay attention to. Okay, we're going to slide on down the bank here and see what else we can do. Jam like this, you think, man, does that look fishy? You know, there's at least one little fish on here, but can't seem to catch him. Got away from me. Alrighty. Not a big one though. Glad to have him now. if you noticed, I should have probably taken a moment and shown you this, but if you noticed, that belly was very white. That fish must have just pulled up not long ago. Some of the fish that we've caught all the way up the river, they were probably a little earlier, coming up here. But their bellies were actually more yellow, and it looked more like they had a tan. But this one was very, very white. Got some water on my glasses now. And but that means that fish just pulled up, so that's a fresh fish. There was another perfect example of, I guess, two things. One, don't give up. We knew there was some sort of fish on this thing, so going around the backside and keep trying, just keep picking it apart and working on it. And then two, not forcing that fish. He was wrapped up real good in a tree limb, and if you saw, I set the hook, and I mean, he was in that tree limb, and then I kind of gave him a little bit, and he came up my way, and I pulled him out and just kept steady pressure on him, and then he came right out my way. So not overdoing it. Your chances of not breaking off just go way up. You're getting the fish out and not breaking off if you keep pressure on them, but don't go crazy. Okay guys, we picked up one more on the spinnerbait. Not a real great looking fish, but it's a fish. Glad to have him. Just moving up. There's kind of this is the deep side of the channel again, right up close to the shore. We found him. We're going to see if we can pick up another one here. Tell you what, guys, we've had a real good time together on the lake, and we have learned quite a bit. We've learned that they were the majority of the fish we caught. I mean, they were all up in this creek channel. It's a little difficult. If I had more time, I would probably work up some of the other side a little bit and hit the mouth a little more carefully. But we have learned quite a bit. They're definitely up in the creek channel, definitely up feeding, getting ready for that pre-spawn, the spawn. And we've caught them on, let's see, we caught a lot of them on a creature bait, some on the jackhammer chatterbait, caught one on the spinnerbait, and I'm sure if we had worked harder we could have added a few more baits in, but there were a lot of fish on the trees, so I was specifically targeting them when I could. And then when I was just going down a bare bank, sometimes I just motor to the next spot, but other times I pick up a spinnerbait or a chatterbait and just work my way down. And we picked a few extras off that way, some on camera, some not, but we did pick up a few extra, and you can do that. You can use use, you know, when you see a target, pick it apart with a jig or a creature bait, and then, you know, get a moving bait as you kind of move a little more aggressively down the shore. But a lot of fun. Glad you came along with me. Today is Friday, and in our house that means family movie night. The kids look forward to it all week, and it's fun just to have a relaxing night with the kids, and so I got to make sure to be back for that. So I'm going to be packing up real soon here. So great to see you guys, and I look forward to catching you next time.